Welcome back, guys. So let's give you the latest on SJM's dad's blog. He has gotten a little bit more aggressive now. We've been discussing how he's been upset with SBS and how he's taking them to the press arbitration committee instead of court, so he doesn't have to deal with the whole legal process. So he went for his first meeting, right? And apparently he was not mad at the press arbitration people. He was mad at the way SBS handled themselves. And you know what he titled his blog post? Fraud. So within this blog post, he uses these types of words. The show and its producers are shameless, brazen, and fraudulent. He said he was enraged. He said they shouldn't have been deceptive with me. So what happened was, I guess he went to his first meeting with the press arbitration people. And apparently, I guess the SBS people came as well with their lawyer. And I think the lawyer probably thought it was like court. So they're just like, oh gosh, we're SBS, we're so busy. We'd like to request a delay, an extension on our next meeting. Because that's how these court things work. It's almost as if you're trying to get through a meal, right? And you get your appetizer and then they're like, can we have the salad in about 3 months? And then when you get there in 3 months, they're like, yeah, I haven't decided yet on the main course. Can we do that in 3 more months? And then they're like, oh yeah, can I get a side of ranch in 3 more months? So that's how usually the bigger power, so like a big broadcasting station like SBS will try to drag out a lawsuit to tire you out and make you go bonkers and frustrated. And they really don't care because they have a ton of stuff to do anyways. And so this just comes on their calendar and they just know how to play this game. It's just like, okay, yeah, all right, well, let's order some more water this time. And apparently, though, I guess the lawyer wasn't very familiar with this press arbitration committee, because if you go to these government offices, they're not like court, and they don't want they're office workers too, right? So they don't want to be like, oh my god, 3 more, no. So they were basically like, no, your next meeting is in 2 weeks, and SBS, you can come or not, you can show up or not show up, but you're not getting an extension. And so SJM's father was happy about that, but I think he saw the true colors of the station and where they were willing to go in this game. And I think he was really upset and probably shocked by that. And in some ways, that just reconfirmed to me that even this behavior is shocking to Korean people. Because when I this is very similar, and this behavior is very similar to what I went through. And when I kind of only spoke in general terms about it, people were just like, oh yeah, well, that's just kind of the game. When it was very specific, most Korean people were very shocked, and they were just like, that is really dirty and low. And I think even for somebody who kind of works in corporate Korea and has seen not so pleasant sides of Korea, if even him, not happy with the way that they were acting. And even one of the lawyers that I worked with, he represents all sorts, when you say, and that's kind of why I wanted to go with him, because I was just like, I need to have somebody who also has represented some of the, not so good people so that they know how this stuff works. And even he was just like, wow, these media people, man, they go in the dirt. And so I think when I heard the rage in this blog, I could tell a little bit of where he was coming from, mainly also because he felt tricked, betrayed, and that the trust was broken. Because he said essentially that he had given his time, his effort to try to give as much as he could for this show so that it could be accurate, and it was about his son. So of course he was going to be extremely cooperative. And so now he's seeing the true colors of it as a company, as the legal strategy. The people who are jaded will just say, doesn't matter which company, doesn't matter which people, this is just the way that the game is played. And in some ways I want to say, yes, this is just the way the game is played. So, let's not try to totally malign people. But on the other hand, this is the way the game is played and it's not good. And so he brought up some very interesting accusations that actually I think he should turn around and make something of his own, because I think it's quite scary. Basically, he was saying there was something very fishy about SBS because they were making conclusions about his son's investigation and case before the police were. So how does a broadcasting station know more than the police? Or how does the broadcasting station make the decision of what the conclusion of this case and investigation is before the police announce it? So that's either extremely manipulative or one-sided, or basically fiction that they're trying to create, or do they have some sort of insider knowledge, or are they colluding and they've already had this conversation? So he gives a timeline to illustrate his point very scientifically. So he said the first time he met with any SBS producer was during the whole grieving period. So that was at the early part of May, either May 5th or 6th, or May 4th through 6th, that period. And then he said the next time he met with a producer was about 10 days later. And 10 days later, that was essentially 2 days after the autopsy came out. So the autopsy came out on May 13th. He met on May 15th, right? So he's basically saying on May 15th, SBS had already made its conclusions about the case. So in the autopsy, it did conclude that SJM died of drowning, but it didn't say how, why, all this, everything was still be under investigation and in question marks. However, SBS is saying okay, death by drowning and probable accidental fall. So basically we're going to say it's accidental fall, and then he died by drowning, and the alcohol level was at such a high point that this is a level where you would have your license revoked. And we all know that BAC on the autopsy said 0.15, which is high, but they said that that's not the real blood alcohol concentration level. That was the false inflated number because the body had been decomposing and rotting. And when that happens, you get blood alcohol in your system because your body is rotting, and a lot of that turns into alcohol. So he had a much lower alcohol level in his system that would not be at the point where you would get your license revoked, which is not at the point where you would do stupid things like fall. So essentially, SJM's father is now seeing wow, even back then, on May 15th, you had already decided that that's what you were going to do. And then you started playing games with me in terms of oh, we would like to interview you now. And what do you think? He said, they came up and they were just all just putting on a show. And he was trying to give them information about all the updates as soon as he got them. But now he realizes that it wasn't going to change a thing, that they had already decided that it was just going to be, the show was going to be in that manner. And then he said, like, it wouldn't even made a difference because they had decided that they were going to really focus on those fishermen, those fishy fishermen, and that they were going to put a lot of weight on their testimony. Why would even the broadcasting station have the authority to weigh their testimony more than any other testimony? They're not the police. They're not handling the investigation. They don't have an inside track into like all of the other components of the investigation. Or did they? Or do they? Or do they have these conversations with the people who are in charge of it? And do they have conversations with how they want the public to understand and accept whatever conclusion they want out there? So the mid-investigation police report came out on May 27th. This broadcast came out on May 29th. He called it a sham committee, even though that sham police committee said that there was no criminal link to this case. They did not mention any other proposed reason or theory as to what happened to SJM. However, the TV show just went ahead with their theories. The TV show just went really like racing forward with their idea of what the truth was. And funny how, they're accusing everybody else of having these kind of crazy conspiracy theories or fake news or whatnot, and that they already on the 15th of May had already decided what happened even before the mid-investigation police report came. And SJM's father says, like, we haven't even gotten the final report in July. We haven't even gotten the final report for the case. So how is this show going to make the final conclusions? He says that is ridiculous. So when he's mad, when he makes the jab that thinks that probably people would get angry about. And a lot of this has to do with money. So he's saying like, look, SBS is using the money that I helped them earn by getting record ratings for this show by just giving free interviews, and he didn't say free, but I'm sure he did not get paid, and just being very cooperative with the show and getting all this advertising revenue. And yet now they want to play legal games with him, having him like run around being like, oh, can we delay this for like 3 months and then meet again 3 months and 3 months later? And he's saying like, look, they're paying for the lawyer out of the money that he helped earn, and they're toying with him. They're going to use that to kick him in the butt. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, and you're right. And he's saying, like, now I get to see their true intentions, and yeah, I don't think you should expect anything less. So you go after them, SJM Daddy. You go after them, and you do what you think you need to do, because you know what you're up against. You just needed that confirmation that this is the type of game and these are the type of people that you're going up against right now, and that they're not going to be respectful to you at all. So I also want to say, from my experience, that you should be confident that you don't have to feel guilty at all for thinking the worst about them, because you have even said they shown their worst side. They brought out their pit bull, just like we saw right away. Somebody get a lawyer, brought out their pit bull. That does show something. That does say something. He also said the producer that they assigned to him and was more on the field was somebody who was like a newbie who really had no experience. And he's like, why is that? And he said he was tipped off by somebody, and that was kind of interesting. So he kind of let the subtext go subtext. So I'll interpret the subtext. Essentially, in that kind of situation, what you definitely... I feel bad for that guy, because that's the fall guy. That's the Jason. That's the guy that you can control 100% from above because they're so new, they don't know anything and they have to follow your direction. But then if something bad happens, if there's some sort of controversy or if the show gets in trouble, they can be like, oh, it's his fault. Yeah, he's so new. He didn't know anything. Oh, we're going to train him better. Oh, I'm so sorry. And then they'll go to him and be like, look, just take this for the team. We'll help you out later. But like, yeah, it's your fault. And so he gets to be the fault. That's essentially the subtext I think that he was talking about. So again, do you think that that is a reputable thing? No. So if that means that you feel better about going after them, go after them, daddy. So he's made some major accusations. So the question on our minds do become, well, are producers actually that shady? Would they take bribes? Would they conspire? And can they? And can a broadcasting station really be that coordinated to create some sort of story that really coordinates with a government agency? Is that possible? And I'll say yes, and yes on all accounts. A lot of producers do and have taken bribes. A lot of the music ranking shows, that those producers are the most notorious for abusing their power and getting all sorts of favors to try to get the music performers in better positions or rankings or whatever will advantage them on the show. And apparently that's been cleaned up a little bit, a lot more over the years. But even recently, I believe there was kind of a big scandal with one of the famous ones. And so it can be shady all around. And at one of the broadcasting stations I worked at, there were several producers who were caught embezzling, and I think some of them even had to maybe even go to jail or something like that. Definitely had to be reprimanded by the company. Funny, a lot of them I don't think got fired. In that position, has that position been really abused before? Yes. Is it easy to do? I think relatively. That's why I think a lot of people do it. So then the next question is, can they be really coordinated? Well, yeah. A lot of the times, the broadcasting stations themselves have their figureheads or the CEOs appointed by the actual Blue House, like the president's office. It's almost like a cabinet appointment. If not a direct cabinet appointment, the president controls the committee that decides upon the group. Or even if the president doesn't directly in name control the committee, they get to control who goes onto that committee. So you see, like, you just follow the which hand controls which hand, and you're like, oh, okay, so it's basically the president gets to decide. And so in that way, it's kind of like ruling like an emperor. And has that created a problem recently? Well, yes, that was part of the reason there was such an uproar against President Park, is that she would have her office bully the broadcasting stations to tone down some of the negative coverage, especially on the Seoul ferry incident. So that came up a lot in a lot of the impeachment proceedings. And I remember even when I was working in the newsroom, we got a call from the Blue House, and they wanted us to even not say a former president's name. I was like, what is this? Like, is that his ex-wife or something? Like, they didn't want to, what? And it wasn't even as if we were making a piece that was like extolling this former president. We were basically outlining different policies of different presidents on North Korea, and we were featuring President Parks, and it was like a whole kind of like actually a very positive, glowing, like she's gonna do a combination of like hardline but leave the door open. Like it was really like we were supposed to do, very favorable to the president. And yet apparently we got a call from the Blue House saying like, we don't want you to even say Kim Dae-jung's name. It was Kim Dae-jung. And basically it was like half a line. It was just like, well, Kim Dae-jung did the sunshine policy, and then Lee Myung-bak did his hardline policy. Like, we were just like kind of listing like, you know, recap. And then this is the glorious new vision. And you didn't want to mention that name. Now I see why, because her father tried to, the allegation is that her father ordered a assassination on Kim Dae-jung. So maybe, you know, his people doesn't really like, you know, those people. So, but still, that's so petty. But however, that kind of influence goes a long way. And I'll even tell you a more shocking story of how long this chain can go where you least expect it, especially involving perhaps a broadcasting station. Well, we had apparently some intern whose father was an executive at SBS, and we didn't know that. So basically, I guess she was making a ruckus or something. Like, she was being like really loud, like in the lobby cafe. And my boss, who's like the head of the news department, I guess told her to kind of, you know, quiet down or something like that. Well, she got mad and she had to tell her daddy at SBS, and they actually punished my boss, took away 3 months of pay just because he told her to quiet down. Now, her dad was not the top executive of our company. I could see perhaps if he pissed off the daughter of somebody of our company, it would still be kind of unfair, probably break a lot of like HR rules, but still kind of understand like, yeah, you don't kind of mess with the boss's daughter. But then this was an actual different company way across town, had no ownership structure overlapping at all. But what does overlap are like the political connections. So if you piss off too many people in the same area, you can jeopardize your own career. So probably some executives in our company were probably rattled by the executives over there, but that's how far this extension of influence can go. And I was shocked because I was like, this can also be a governance problem, because an executive from a different company should not be able to dictate what goes on in our company. And at a certain point, even if it's not about rules, like if you're the CEO of a company, really, you're gonna take an order from somebody else, and then like just because his intern daughter, who probably didn't even know what she was doing, was making a ruckus in the cafe and just was asked to be quiet, and suddenly you have to punish your own news director like that? I mean, come on. But that's what happens, and that's what could explain some of this coordination that can definitely happen among different agencies where you least expect it. So even if people say like, oh, we have no ties, we have no connections, you don't know exactly, you know, where those connections could go, you know, outside of a family tree. Like, family connections aren't the only things that tie people together. So I don't know what happened to that girl. I wish her the best. I hope she's doing well, but you know, that is also an example of why that this is the dangerous path that we are on as a society if we continue to let those types of elements be even more emboldened. Because now she thinks that she can just call up daddy and, like, you know, take away 3 months' pay from a news director at a different company. What else is she going to think that she can do? I mean, granted, she always has to have daddy there, but then, you know, these kind of girls will find a different daddy somewhere else. But in a way, that is a real terror, and it will ruin any kind of environment, probably wherever she goes. I don't even know her. I've never even seen her. I've never met her name. I don't even know. I just heard about this story, and I was too busy to really get into it, but I always remembered it because I was shocked at how somebody from a different company could have control over our company because of that, because of some sort of political influence. Shocked, totally shocked. And now, not surprised. So, SJM's father, go after it. Do what you need to do. Do not have any mercy, but do it the way that you do it, because I think we all like the way you'd handle things in your own style. All right, guys, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.